Welcome back to Eclectic Soundtrax episode. Who knows? So Victor, the other day I said, I think with Scott's episode, I was like episode 10. And then I looked and like, we already posted episode 10. I was like, oh no, this is like 12. So this is probably 14 or some shit. Who fucking?
I got that too.
I still got my gentleman's bird feeder hat. And we have Ulrich Ellison on. Did I say it right?
You said it perfectly, my friend.
Perfect. It's this hat. It makes me smart. And my glasses. On the podcast today, man, you are obviously a great guitar player, a great musician, and you've been all over the world. I was telling Vic before you came on, you're from Austria originally, right?
That's right, yeah.
And then I met you here in Austin. It's been, I think we met at maybe about 2008 or something, 7 or 8, somewhere in there. I just, on a whim, I was like walking down 6th Street one night and I heard me having the immaculate taste that I have. I will credit myself on that. I'm pretty good with like spot stuff, And I just heard like some good, because you're going to hear like blues players and stuff all the time on 6th Street. And this was back when there was probably actually still a little more of that actual live music, maybe less dance club and just total douchery, So there was a lot of blues and live music going on. And we walked past, I think it was Dizzy Rooster. And I was like, that sounds cool. Like really great guitar playing and tone. And so let's just go in here and have a drink. And I see this guy playing and he's playing, I don't know what kind of guitar, some kind of Strat, and you're doing sort of some bluesy stuff with the band, but like really had some nice, tasty, jazzy chops. It had its own flavor, which was nice. And you had this really interesting amp that caught my eye too. It was just like a box with some fucking tubes sticking out of the top. It was the craziest damn thing I ever saw. And I think it's a custom thing. I don't know if you're still with them or they build you stuff or whatever, but yeah, give us some background on everything. Tell us your entire life story. Go.
Well, you caught me in my 6th Street bar band phase. I came to Austin in 2007 to do my master's in jazz guitar. I got this scholarship, a Fulbright scholarship to do it. And so that's how I came to Texas. And then I started studying at UT and started practicing a lot. But pretty soon, I was like, okay, I'm in Austin. I got to start playing some gigs and meet some people. And, I did some subbing gigs for my guitar teacher, Mitch Watkins, with some of the faculty members, and I played in a jazz big band. And on the other side of the spectrum, that's where you saw me. I played bar gigs on 6th Street, and I really loved that variety of situations. And I played like probably anywhere between 6 and 10 gigs a week back then, and it really honed my skills on all levels, not only playing wise, but, communication wise and situation wise. And, how can you get the attention of a frat party crowd, when it's 1 a.m. in the morning, your Charlie Parker bebop licks are not really doing their job, So I started walking around with my guitar, I started playing slide with a beer bottle and jumping up on tables, and it's just kind of enhanced my lead guitarist vocabulary with some practical tricks. And that's right around the time where we met, I think.
Performance chops.
Yeah. It's that's the music business, right? It's not only about what you can play, but it's how you can deliver it, how you can put personality behind. And I'm not playing on 6th Street anymore, but I really cherish those few years as a kind of development of my stage personality.
And was that with several different bands, or did you have a primary project or two?
I played with everybody back then, but I started with 2-3 main bands, and then other people would see me play and hire me too, or would sub, and just branched out from there. I ended up playing at Anton's, then I remember, and then I heard about the Capital Heart of Texas Blues competition. So I played that with 2 bands, and I said, you know what, I'm playing this with the other bands. I should put my own band together and also try it, And so I ended up as a finalist, and I just got into the groove kind of, And then when I graduated from UT in 2009, and by the time, I played in a salsa band, I played some progressive rock, and I've just started meeting more and more people. And then pretty soon after that, I put my own trio together with Dave Sierra and Brady McElroy, kind of people from around the jazz.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Cool, man.
Yeah. And that was kind of my first original project, And then we started playing my own songs. I realized that, if I want to really like be a gigging musician with my own music and play a lot of gigs and start to travel, I should really consider start to sing. And I kind of had this love-hate relationship with my voice. And then, of course, being from Austria, I wasn't real fluent in Texan English.
Well, that gives you your own thing, though. See, that's cool. You don't sound like everybody.
Yeah, but, all my singing was just not really well-rounded. It was kind of, it had these corners and, awkwardness a little bit. And
you're kind of limited because, did you speak English before you moved here? Had you learned English, or was that something that you very much learned when you got to the?
No.
Did you move to the States?
My mom is an English teacher, so I learned English pretty early on, and then I spent some time in Nebraska as a teenager. I actually went to high school in the Sand Hills, and but still, to sing in English. Now, there's many singers in Austria that. The English is just not perfect. You can still hear that accent. There's very few singers like, I think of Scorpions or so, where you really cannot hear an accent anymore.
Well, you can.
Yeah, but, it's...
I know what you mean. I mean, but you can still tell, you can still, you can tell that guy's foreign, but he's got pretty good enunciation. He's got it down pretty well.
He got his own sound, and so, in the meantime, I hear very often wow, where are you from? When you were singing, we didn't hear that you're not from here. But, when you're talking, I can clearly hear you're not from around. But so, it's just like you learn an instrument, you learn how to play jazz without an accent. And so you also learn how to sing without an accent, or you learn how to sing blues without an accent. It doesn't mean that you're going to, as a foreigner, that automatically you're going to sing jazz without an accent, because it's just the way you place the vowels. There's more than just speaking correctly, obviously, so it just took me a long time to kind of, I'm still working on that. Yeah, I'm still honing that, but that was kind of the starting phase when I started to sing. And then 2012, I really recorded my first songwriting album, Lose Yourself. And then kind of, starting from there, I started touring with my own band in the States first, and then started making some connections in Europe. And pretty much since then, I've been steadily releasing albums and been touring.
Several European tours, right? You've gone over there quite a bit.
Every year, twice pretty much, the spring tour and the fall tour.
More than here? Do you still tour here as much, or is it primarily overseas?
I kind of stopped, I was going hard over here for a while with 3-4 2-week tours with 14 shows in a row. And it just wasn't worth it anymore. It wasn't like a continuous build-up. It was kind of hit and miss, So we would go to little towns in Indiana or Kentucky, where we already kind of had a little circle and fan base. And then the third time around, suddenly there was only half the people there, So it just became a real hit or miss, risky kind of thing. Whereas the European thing, was a rough start. It was really hard to get in there. But from the get-go, there was this feeling of a continuous build and continuous excitement of people, starting to follow you and telling their friends about it. And so more and more, I just started putting my chips on the European.
I feel like as an American musician, I'm just so jealous. I feel like for American musicians, right? For so many other parts of the world, the dream is to come to the United States, right? And all the opportunity in the schools. And there's a bunch of amazing things here, obviously. But the American musician, a lot of times, especially in the rock world, maybe if you're a localized thing doing the Texas country circuit, it might be a little bit, but I think a lot of guys from Texas do that, right? But, or maybe, certain genres or whatever, they're bigger. But then in the rock world and the blues, it's not maybe what it once was in the 80s and 90s. And so, in prior decades. So I think I have maybe it's a misnomer, but someone like you kind of confirms that, where I'm like, man, it's just, I always hear these awesome going to Europe and getting treated really well and having good crowds and hospitality in Japan and all. And then you're like, that sounds great. And then you come back to the US and it's like 14 people like, woo, yeah, here's $1.
I got a good story concerning that. Like in 2012, I ended up opening up for Uriah Heep and Nazareth.
Nice.
And then, I did those shows, and then I came back, and I remember still I was scheduled to play a show at Joe's Crab Shack.
Yeah, sounds about right. Yeah.
I think it was one of the balcony TV shows, balcony TV, and it was just such a open awakening call, It's like, okay, I'm back in Austin now, playing at Joe's Crab Shack, back from the huge European tour,
It's such a musician thing.
Crazy.
You go play some crazy, amazing festival, and then, like you said, then your very next gig, you're playing a restaurant for a handful of people that maybe a few people are listening.
It's actually pretty humorous in a way,
Yeah. I mean, that's the hustle life of a DIY musician, unless you're a huge pop act. Well, that's cool. I mean, you've had obviously done a lot of touring there. What are some other places you've been, or is it primarily Europe that you've toured outside of the US?
Well, in the meantime, I mean, the whole story would take me a long time to tell. But in 2018, I became Jose Feliciano's musical director. And so there was a completely different gig, I switched back to playing for someone else. And then with him, we played shows in North America, South America, and in Australia. And so, that was a unique experience. And then in Europe, with my own band, I started expanding. First played Germany, Switzerland, and Italy. Then France, Belgium, Netherlands, started having a booking agency in the Netherlands, then Denmark. So we kind of explored and conquered the territory. And then we toured in Norway twice. And that was also a highlight. Both the fans there, it's different for every genre. You got to say that too. There's what I'm saying probably doesn't apply to a regular indie band. But, I just found out for myself that as a guitar player, I like to solo and improvise. And the blues roots genre actually lends itself very well for a player, like me. I'm rooted in jazz, but I love rock. And that was just a great platform for me to improvise and, play for people that appreciate that. And for that crowd, I think the European market is very good, and it's a little older crowd, but that also means that, they have a little more money to spend maybe, and they really appreciate genuine artists.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, you're I guess a good definition of like a fusion player, because you're proficient in blues. You've got the blues and you can play it well. It's not like, trying to play the blues. It's like, like you said, like you've got that going, but then the jazz stuff too. So in the rock, it's a nice balance. You got a nice bag,
Sometimes I feel like, I kind of unlearned how to play jazz because, when I was in school, of course, I was fully immersed into that and big band charts and just studying Charlie Parker and, just the greats. And then when you start playing in the club circuit and so, and especially if you don't play with a jazz band, that jazz thing is just going to go on the back burner naturally.
Yeah, no one else can fucking handle it.
No one can handle it. And you almost want to cleanse yourself from it in a way,
It's definitely a very different mindset. Like for me, it's like I was rock and blues, and it was a very long time before I got into any of it. I mean, for my idea of jazz, I'm one of those like phony jazz. Like I play a 9 and I think I'm playing jazz. Like I'll throw in some chromaticism and some things, but really the phrasing and then just where you're, like you said, where you're putting accents and the way you approach, it's completely different, right? It's a backbeat versus like on the beat. Or how would you explain from a rhythmic phrasing standpoint? In general, if there's a difference between approaching a jazz and a rock situation?
From a rhythmic standpoint, I don't make so much a difference, I think, because, there's swing in blues rock. You have a swing element. I like to develop phrases. So I think from a rhythmical standpoint, I'm actually the closest to the jazz language.
I think you're right when you say blues, though, and you've got a natural swing already happening.
Yeah.
I think that for me, like, that's probably why, I guess in a rhythmic way, I think like maybe that transition aspect that wasn't as easy to me because I've always had that sort of style, that bluesy style about my playing.
Mm-hmm.
But then get to the extreme harmonic possibilities and the slur and the putting together the big long phrases is like, I think that's where it's very much a massive level jump from, sort of a modal rock sort of soloing, right?
I think, I mean, as a jazz player, to develop the ability to just play endless eighth note lines, I mean, kind of like a Pat Martino mindset that you can just keep on going with your stream of ideas forever. I think that's kind of the difference towards like a blues rock player, kind of, that you constantly invent melodic ideas as a jazz player. Whereas as a rock player, you get in, you kill it, and you get out, a clean entrance, some blood shedding, and get out clean.
Yeah.
And get to the point quickly, and it's more about gesture than it is about melodic inventiveness. If you can get a little bit of a melodic, I always look for melodies no matter what I play. So, but I think, and generally, if I think of rock, of course, there's different techniques involved. There's more palm muting. There's more keeping your sound under control, your feedback under control. And in the meantime, I play a little more with my fingers, even, And
yeah, it's interesting when you have, because if you have a rock guy like myself going like putting into a jazz chart situation, I'm just dead. But it's also funny when you see the jazz guy who's a true jazzer, with that full guitar and his, no distortion in the and then all of a sudden you're like, cool, let's just like vamp Dorian and go, and everyone's like distorted, and he's like shitting his pants when he's got to start bending the strings. It's so fucking different worlds.
I never really experienced that. I would like to see it.
I've seen it, and it's bad when it's not when it's not your thing. Like I mean, think of like Yngwie playing jazz. Like how would that go? You know what I mean?
That wouldn't go very well, but I don't think he would ever attempt to do that.
I actually heard a funny story about that many years back from the MI guys. There was a jam with, I want to say it was this dude that's a teacher there, and his name is Dan Gilbert. He's it's just a fucking phenomenal guitar player. And I don't know if he still teaches there, but he taught at MI forever. And then Frank Gambale, I think, was one of the guys. And anyway, and then Yngwie, and then maybe there was another guy or two, and they all had this jam. And so the first thing they were like, this guy was telling the story, was like, and this was in late 80s or something. So Shred was like huge in the whole, and Yngwie was like, yeah, let's do, surprise, surprise. Let's do, a harmonic minor. And he just destroyed it. And everyone was just like, wow, and then another guy was like, let's do this. And it was like a jazz standard. And Yngwie was just like, I don't play, fuck this, It's like tried to play a little bit and just was like, no, because you got to like, some people have their bag and they're really good at that bag. And other people, I think, are very adaptable, like yourself, probably, you can step into many, many different musical situations and know what's appropriate for that situation and how to
Right. I mean, it's a personality thing too,
Sure. Yeah. When it's your thing, and that's, you don't have to do anything else. And
in my case, I just get bored quickly. And so if I just do the same thing over and over, it just gets boring after a while.
I hear you. That's why I could never just go do the 6th Street Blues gigs over and over. I'd be
but
like, solo. And I'm like, I hate I don't want to do this. When I was like 16, I'm like, yeah. Now I'm like, this is boring as hell, man.
But the 6th Street thing for me as a foreigner was maybe a little bit different too, because in Austria, there's no place where you have the opportunity to just, walk down the street and just have 30 places with live music 24/7, And so in a way, it was like paradise. It was like a dream world that
I think it was really cool and something I aspired to too. And it was exciting to first play it, and maybe I'm just being an asshole, but like, I just don't know. Like when you said about getting bored, like, I feel like these days I am more interested when I have to learn a piece of music or there's something that presents a different musical challenge rather than just me sort of soloing over the stuff that, solo. And I'm a blues player. I mean, if I pick up the guitar and fiddle around, it's inevitably I'm going to just like follow a 1-4-5 and play blues. Like that's what I do. But I don't really have a desire to go sort of play that stylistic. Like some people, I think they can play that and really love it, or maybe it's a paycheck and it's like anything. People probably get bored of playing their hits all the time. I'm sure bored of playing the same fucking blues.
Well, that's an interesting question. Like what is our desire to do? What do we end up doing? And what do we have to do to make a living? That's, I think every musician navigates through that world a little different. For me, I always just liked a challenge or like a job, basically, in a way. Even if it was a blues gig, I would just learn B.B. King or how to phrase like Albert King, real simple. And I would listen to other blues players and okay, I don't know this vocabulary. I don't know those kind of ending phrases. They always would end us, this kind of tail of phrase. I was like, okay, I want to learn how to do this, And I mean, I got the skills, I can hear it. My fingers can go there. So I want to learn this. So those kind of challenges, maybe not technical challenges, but musical challenges.
Yeah, and a lot of it, I think, as a musician, as you grow, becomes listening, right? It just becomes a listening and becoming immersed and aware in these different styles. And it's hard to get anything without kind of, like you said, you got to go listen to the players, right? You got to emulate and listen to the great players in those genres.
Right.
And I personally like that. That's the kind of stuff that I love. I love that really old school blues stuff.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I mean, that's still like the best stuff. Nothing has to be fast and flashy, but when the licks are always right,
And so for me, it was always like, okay, if I can be in a situation like that where I learn something and, I make some dollars and I develop my sound, I'm fine, I'm happy. And then eventually I just wanted to have my own band and play my own tunes. And I kind of realized that, I wanted to become more simple, more approachable. And I needed to do that too. And it was just a different path than, to develop my jazz language or become a jazz soloist. I realized maybe that I wasn't passionate enough about becoming a soloist or, just picturing myself to become like a fusion jazz player and release records in that genre. My first record kind of was in that genre, and then when I was at UT, I still had aspirations somehow, but just realized that passion wasn't as large as to connect with people and share my own songs and also kind of lyrical messages with the audience and just be a different kind of person basically on stage. And I think, so it's like a choice that you make at some point,
That's the journey, right? Kind of finding yourself as an artist. And same here. It's like I got into guitar, but I always sort of like classical piano, and then I also played rock guitar, and then we go through a blues phase, and you just, I just want to be I remember one time one guy was like, well, do you want to be a blues guitarist? Do you want to be that? And I'm kind of like, yeah, I want to be that. But I'm going, I don't know, dude. Like, I'm kind of all over, just like, because I always love metal, and so then it's like now, for whatever reason, I'm just kind of like you. I think in a lot of different places, I just do different things that feed me musically in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
I still have my own project, which is kind of got a direction, but it can also be somewhat of a catch-all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just like, but I think, and it certainly is not something that is making tons of money, but it's nice to. But I don't know. Like there was a time when I just wanted to like be Joe Satriani, and I'm just like, I'm just not. That's just not who I am,
Yeah.
I'm also not, like Slayer, It's like you sort of have to find who you are,
Yeah.
So your band, tell us the name of the band.
Well, I play under my own name, basically. I was calling my band The Tribe for a while, but at the end of the day, it's my own band, and I always played with different people over the years, and it's just it's also kind of a decision you have to make. Do you play with the same people and it becomes more of a band and family, and there might be some musical compromises, or do you just play with the people you really want to play with, and then you gotta kind of herd them together, and those guys are going to be busy, and then you just end up not having a band, basically.
It's yeah, man. I mean, I know it very much what you mean, and it's in order to have a group of people that all in committed. I think maybe sometimes that happens collectively for people at a younger age, and the older you get, the more it's kind of your baby, and you kind of have. I mean, but when you do it all the time, you have a network of great musicians, right? And you can kind of afford to alternate the roster, see who's available for what and this, who's right for this and that. And
right.
I think for me personally, it seems a little more realistic sometimes, right? And it is more of your thing in the first place, right? So kind of your vision in your songs for the most part, I'm assuming. Not to say that other people don't contribute, but yeah. I think it's very difficult to keep a band together, like the same roster. Very few bands actually seem to make that happen.
It is, and it's really a business thing as much as it's a musical thing at some point. Because if you want to keep playing together, and if you're playing with full-time musicians, then your paycheck just needs to be big enough. And so, with touring and so, it just needs to kind of all work out for everyone. And yeah, if you manage to do that, then I think that's a foundation, keeping a band together.
How did the Jose Feliciano thing come about?
That was real interesting. I've known his manager for a long time. Even before I came to the States, I already knew him. He's from Austria. And so I knew he was working with Jose, and I always kind of kept him in the loop on the side about my stuff. And then this one time, in 2017, new album was out. I think he liked that new album just a little bit more than the previous ones. Kind of just hit him a little harder, So he invited me to open for Jose on his birthday show. And so we went there. There was, 6 different acts or so. And then, one thing led to the next, just playing in front of Jose. Jose heard the band. He liked it. We started talking. And before you know it, the manager had the idea we should come to Beverly Hills and open up a show there for him, just like 3 weeks later. So I ended up doing that, and I played lead guitar in Jose's band there. And then things just started clicking. In LA, I met some other like industry people there, and some people I'm still in contact with now. So I kind of, got a feeling of those new circles, like
I mean, it kind of
higher up. And it's like Jesus,
We were just talking about that. There's so much, sort of like bullshit out there because people know how desperate, musicians.
Yeah, but there's also that old school scene that
no. When you actually start getting your foot into the door with the real people, then that's what's going to lead to like real opportunities.
Yeah, like at that birthday party, they also had a singer from the Supremes there. Not Diana Ross, but what's her name? Mary. I forgot her last name. But she was singing there, and I mean, she was killer. She was 70 and still killer. She sang a duet with Jose, and I was just pinching myself,
It was like a private party at like a house in Beverly Hills, or it wasn't like a bar.
Yeah. There was his, the house owner's 50th birthday, and he just hired the whole Jose Feliciano band for his birthday.
That's awesome.
So we did that show, and then pretty soon after that, Jose's manager informed me that he wanted me to lead Jose's band, and that was a huge honor, of course. And we produced a single first, and then it was actually the 50th anniversary year for Jose. So the manager had this vision of just making something fresh and hip, and kind of get all those guest artists involved, and have a musical director that can write scores and charts, and that's why he wanted to have me. And then We toured and everything. It was real difficult because it turned out that the manager really had the plan to control Jose through me, kind of. And so it didn't end well. I ended up being cut short for 15 grand and had to fight for that money eventually.
Oh, man, sorry, dude. Jesus.
Yeah.
Is
that
that
was a little
well,
rough.
I won't dig into that, but
No.
one thing I was going to say, where did you guys record? And you said you had a bunch of guest artists and stuff. Was that something that was done here?
That was done in Austria, in Jose's. He has like a studio and a house in Austria.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that part of it was nice, right? It was like a homecoming for you. Did you?
Yeah, but I was working my ass off. I didn't really have time to enjoy that. I was just in the studio 12 days, 12 hours a day.
Like, recording and as a band director, you got a heavy fucking load, man.
Yeah, it was.
You're writing basically the scores and the charts for the whole band and all that.
Yeah, and a lot more.
Are you on was some of the guys that were in the band? Were some of those guys here? Are you on okay terms with them, or was there a big fallout with everybody?
There was no problem with the band at all. I mean, we got along great. And Jose too, he was the manager.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know.
Gotcha.
The musician.
That's it. Was a real music business story,
Yeah, no, it's a real that's you have I'd like to say you've lived the dream. See, you've lived the dream, but with the dream comes that other side of it, man. Now you can be on behind the music and all that shit.
It's true.
That's definitely old school stuff, right there.
You kind of have to go through that, I guess. But after all in all, it ended well. The whole story ended well, and just the people I met through that year, I'm still working with those, and
totally worked it just to open up the doors. I mean, it's what an amazing thing to have in your resume too. I mean. Yeah, it's just one of those things too. It's like you say, "Oh, I played with," because, dude, I saw you. You invited me out to I want to say screening, a listening party, right?
Yeah,
for an EP you'd done, and and so what is that? Cedar Creek Studios, right?
Yeah.
So I came out there. It was my first time out there. That was a really awesome place, really cool studio, and we were hanging out there, and I met some people there, and I want to say a couple of the guys there might have been some of the same guys that played with you with Jose Feliciano, the drummer, maybe.
Only one show. We flew him in for one show, but yeah.
And Omar was out there. I think we're going to have Omar on the podcast here.
Awesome.
In January, man. Yeah. And so, it was cool. I don't know when I always run into you here and there randomly.
Well, everything kind of changed for me. Right now I live in Turkey, and this whole pandemic just changed my whole life pretty much,
But that's the thing. Like, you live in Turkey. Well, here I remember. When did I see you at the thing? Because I came out to Cedar Creek. When I don't remember when that was. That was man.
It was about 1.5 years ago, maybe. Yeah.
And then you went to Turkey, and then I ran into you though at Carousel Lounge, for the Izzy Cox tribute, because Omar was doing that film. I guess is done, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And then you were telling me that you had been to India, and dude, talk about your India experience. That was fucking fascinating.
Yeah, it was a wild ride. I just decided to go on a 10-day silent retreat and kind of, cleanse myself.
Just when you were over in Turkey, and then you just sort of
No, that was before I went to Turkey.
Okay,
that was in June last year, and then. It was a wild experience, It was a Vipassana meditation retreat, and everything, all the places in Europe were booked. So I just went to India and did it there, and I didn't really have an idea how intense that would be, on top of the meditation, to just be in the culture where all that came from, and be among people that couldn't speak English, and I was the only foreigner. It was just crazy. And then I ended up making some music. I didn't bring a guitar or anything, didn't plan on making any music, but the guitars kind of kept following me around. And then I ended up writing a song and recording it with some people in Bombay. And we did a music video, and we just, I made so many friends, and we jammed, and it became a crazy musical exchange as well.
So it happens when you're a musician. It's gonna find you, right?
Yeah, and then they're so enthusiastic in India about music, and it's you kind of feel like you're part of the Beatles. I mean, you play something, you see the joy and the fascination in the eyes, and just it's kind of lost a little bit here in our Western world.
Interesting, man. Yeah. And, I just remember talking to you a little bit about that night we ran into each other, and you were, I don't think it was fasting or anything, but there was several days there was no speaking really, and you're just sort of isolated, and it's very like intense.
Yeah, it was something called noble silence, where you just don't talk to anyone, and then you just meditate the whole day, like 14 hours pretty much, and your whole perception of time and space and everything just changes, And of course, I never meditated before really, so your whole body and everything just is so sore and so overwhelmed with what you're asking it to do suddenly, to sit like that for 14 hours a day, so you just kind of fall apart and newborn, within a few days your body adjusts to it, but it's a transformation in a way.
Yeah, it's funny to think, but it makes sense. I mean, because it's almost like that's the ultimate discipline. Really, it is the ultimate discipline. Like just sit still.
Yeah, sit still, and also silence your mind. Basically, make your mind still. And
that's the difference between the truly enlightened and the rest of us. Because I'm ADD. I can't even do this podcast without interrupting everybody. Victor clearly has a much better point of zen.
I have a question. Is there a way we could cut this short and maybe do a second part sometime?
It's late, and I don't mind doing that.
Yeah.
Because absolutely. I just want to. I need to explain a little bit. In this year of the pandemic, of course, for all of us musicians, everything has changed. So I started doing an experiment, 7 ways how to make money digital as a musician in 7 different ways. Some of the ways I've already explored a little bit, including custom production and session work for people. But I recently joined Fiverr, and they have a new thing now that's called Fiverr Pro, where when you get selected for that, you become like a high class, high demand studio musician on that platform that has like, I think now it's 21 million members or so. It's a large community. And so, but that also means you need to be readily available whenever something comes in, or there's like 10 other people that want.
So that's what job. Just happened. I mean, so you're in DC right now, right?
Yeah, that's what happened tonight.
We're just on there. Explain it. If you got a minute, explain that.
Yeah, we had that interview scheduled, and then I just got in some work from Fiverr, and a guy needed something fixed. And so I completely lost track of our schedule. And so while we had been talking now, I had sent the client something right before we started. And then, there was something he needed to change. So I told him, I'm not available right now. So that's just kind of the new reality. When you decide to do something like that, it's a commitment too, in a way, it's, but there are some guys that make a full-time living,
pretty good pay.
5-figure monthly income. I mean,
oh wow.
Yeah.
Dang.
It depends how far you take it, but there's guys that really make a killing with it.
Cool, man. Well, I mean, if you need to get back to that, we can do that. We've talked about doing a part 1 and a part 2.
Yeah.
So maybe this can be this can be the first one of those.
And then maybe the second part, I can tell you, because I'm just getting started with that. I can tell you about my experiences in the new post-pandemic world.
Yeah. In the apocalyptic dystopian reality where you are you'll either be like wearing gold rings and like cash, chicks with feathers and feeding you grapes, or you'll be like fucking on the side of the road like, dude, that Fiverr shit sucks. Do it.
In any case, I won't be on the side of the road because, there is
I think you've got a good enough resume that you're going to keep getting work. Yeah.
I hope so.
No, man. I'm glad you took the time to do this, man. I know you're super fucking busy.
This was fun. I'm glad you guys are doing that. It's a great thing.
idea when you'll be back in Austin, or are you in DC? Where do you live?
I'm in DC. No, I'm just temporary in DC. I did a recording project that I produced an album for a client. That's another thing that, I started doing more this year, producing music for other people. And so I'll be back in Turkey in a few weeks, and then we can just schedule something if you'd like.
All right, brother. Well, shit, man. Good having you, and good luck with this client.
Good to see you, Skunk.
All right, brother.
All right.
Thanks, Ulrich Ellison, everybody. To be continued on Eclectic Soundtrax. Whatever.
Thank you, guys. Keep doing your thing.
Thanks.
All right, man.
There's a little painting of you on the wall. There's a little piece of inside in us all. It's a little prize that no buyer will find. The recurring condensation of time. The time. The time. The time.